Good morning, everybody. It's not gin, I can assure you. I'm slightly losing my voice. It's my husband's birthday tomorrow, and I think he's hoping that it goes all together. Best birthday ever. Can you imagine? I'm so thrilled to be joining you again at the results of the second All-In census. I'm the sort of political bit before you get to the really good bit that you're waiting to hear. But I'm so excited to be here because I was at the very first one a couple of years ago when we were all on little boxes on our computers. I'm Caroline Dinenage. I'm a Member of Parliament. I've previously been Minister for Equalities, Minister for Digital and Culture, but actually, excuse me, I don't come from a political background. I come from a nice, normal business background. I started my first business when I was 19 years old. So I think I've always regarded myself as a bit like a politician trapped in a businesswoman's body, or maybe the other way around, I can't figure it out. But anyway, it's a great pleasure to be here. And this work kind of smushes together all the things that I'm really passionate about. So I'm really, really pleased to be here. Look, you know, there's no doubt that the last 3 years has caused some significant disruption to our world and our way of life. And of course, the creative industries are no different. You know, the United Kingdom is the largest advertising market in Europe and one of the leading in the whole world. Every year, brands and companies just spend billions of pounds on promotion to boost awareness, to strengthen their competitive standing, to drive sales. And in 2020, advertising spend in the UK amounted to 21 billion British pounds. And I know that it contracted during COVID, during the pandemic, but expenditure did start to ramp up again in 2021. So it's really inspiring. You guys are so influential, and it's so inspiring to see the way that you've risen to the challenges that the last few years have thrown at you and continue to bounce back. So I spoke at the Launch Summit 2 years ago, and I said then it was my belief that we can harness what has happened to make positive changes in the advertising industry. And I think the action plan put in place by the Advertising Association is Exhibit A in that philosophy. It is truly revolutionary to see countless companies sign up to the 9-stage plan, see how seriously diversity and equality and inclusion agenda is now being taken. As you've heard already, it's not about words, it's about action. I say that to my husband quite a lot. Actions speak louder than words. Very important. This is an industry that was immortalized in the TV show Mad Men. I think we now need to rebrand it. We need a new TV show, maybe called Mental Health Aware Group of People Representative of Gender, Ethnicity, Disability, Sexual Orientation, Religion and Social Mobility. Okay, it's a working title. You can see why I'm not in the advertising industry. But I have a hunch that it's going to result in a much happier and more productive workforce and advertising that speaks to so many more people. And of course, DE&I isn't just the right thing to do. It pays. Let's break it down. Let's break the DE&I down just a little bit. When we talk about diversity, equality, and inclusion, there's such a temptation to lump it all together, tick the boxes without really considering what they all mean individually and what actually they can do for our businesses. We know that a workforce where everybody feels fairly treated and equally treated is a successful and creative workforce. We also know that a variety of different backgrounds and experiences adds huge value to the quality of our output and our ability to capture a much wider audience, especially in the creative industries. But what about inclusion? It's the bit that we always forget. We can treat everybody fairly. We can ensure all the protected characteristics are considered and respected across the workforce. But crucially, industry needs to attract that workforce and then hold on to it and ultimately get it firing on all cylinders. And all those things are so important. Ben spoke earlier about not being able to see people like him. And it's the same in industry. Unless you can see it as a child growing up, you can't expect to be it. You need to be able to see people that look and sound and come from a background like you. And inclusion is key to this. It's the culture of which the entire workforce can feel that they can apply for a job, get judged upon their core skills and their future potential, and then feel comfortable and, importantly, confident to be themselves. And inclusion is the hard one. You can't build it into a contract. It's got to be built into a workplace culture. And one of the brilliant speakers back in 2021 said, for certain groups, that culture in and of itself can be a hard nut to crack. It's a hard thing to measure, inclusion, and it's even harder to implement until you get out there and you ask people, do you feel included? Do you feel this is a place that works for you? Are we getting the best out of you? And you know what? This takes balls. It takes balls to ask those questions because, well, people tell you their answers and you might not like them. And then once you do have the answers, you then feel duty-bound to do something with them, don't you? And that's where this all-in work is so important and groundbreaking. An industry-wide initiative demonstrating fantastic partnership working and all geared towards ensuring that everyone in UK advertising in the workforce feels like they belong. So as you know, we've already heard back in 2021, 16,000 people took part in the first census. Incredible. I often speak at events and talk about that as being a real groundbreaking test case of how sectors should operate. But you know, some of the data made for a very difficult reading. 24%, the overall pay gap from men to women was 24%, and there was a widening pay gap as seniority increases. It suggested an overall pay gap from minority ethnic to white of 11%, but that Black and Asian communities had the worst experiences, and nearly a third of Black respondents and over a quarter of Asian respondents reported they were likely to leave the industry due to lack of inclusion or discrimination. It showed that a majority of those defined as disabled felt that they were supported by their company, but the issue was that not everyone had made their company aware of their condition. And this was particularly pronounced for non-visible conditions such as mental health or stress and anxiety, which brings us back to inclusion. It sounds like the staff felt nervous about disclosing too much for fear of exclusion, embarrassment, or that they might be treated differently. So, as you know, the census gave birth to the all-in action plan to address it, crucially developed by the working groups, all with the relevant lived experience and shaped by this data. And so far, they include actions to improve the representation and experience of talent that identified as women, Black, Asian, disabled, working class, LGBTQ+, older, or having mental health challenges. But you're also trailblazers because the work that you inspired and provided the blueprint for the has now moved on to the WFA's global DE&I census, which covered 34 countries and went live on the same day. So the All-in Action Plan provides a framework to address issues, and it can be evolved through a tried and tested experience of organisations who've adopted all the actions. And there are now over 100 all-in champions, including Google, ITV, Boots, Tesco's, and OMG, and many have fed back that the all-in framework has shaped and accelerated progress against their DE&I agenda. So, we know that the challenges perpetuate out there. You're about to hear all the intimate details of the data as we now have it, but I want to just talk through a couple of the challenges. Okay, let's start with women. I declare an interest. I am one. We make up 51% of the population. The gender pay gap persists across virtually all sectors, and more needs to be done to support women in the workplace and also those returning to the labour force. So I was the Minister for Women and Equalities for a couple of years, sorry Ben, and I brought forward the gender pay gap legislation. That was one of my pieces of work. Look, it's a blunt instrument, but it really began to shine a light on some of the issues. One of the issues is the pipeline. Another one is the fact that women are just not applying for promotions in anything like the same way as guys. Anecdotally, I often speak about this. There seems to be an issue where women look at the 10 criteria for a job and say, oh, I have 8 of those, I'm probably not qualified to do it. Men look at them and go, oh, I've got 3 of those, I'm more than qualified, I'm going to apply. Which is why we need the pipeline to make sure, and the mentoring, and to be able to identify the obstacles. Women aren't applying for funding for their businesses. Women-led businesses are actually more likely to succeed, but they're less likely to start or apply for funding. £250 billion would be added to the UK economy if women were starting and scaling their businesses at the same rate as men. And then, of course, we have the issue of caring responsibilities. Women are predominantly viewed as the primary caregiver still, and no matter what anybody says, ultimately the buck generally stops with the women. And of course, one upside of the pandemic is that it's brought us much more flexible working, which is great. But we also have that issue of many women end up as sandwich carers. They're looking after a younger generation, maybe children or grandchildren, and supporting with that. But also they may have an older relative as well that they look after. And then when all of those plates are spinning, into the mix comes menopause. Yay! I declare an interest there as well. Just when women are most experienced and they have so much to add to their workplace. I'm on the Women and Equality Select Committee, and we concluded that women feel unsupported at work, are reluctant to disclose their symptoms, and can be treated negatively because of them. And this is because of gendered ageism. As a result of this, there is a significant loss of skills, knowledge, and economic output as women leave the labour force due to menopause discrimination. In most cases, reasonable adjustments would have kept them. They would have kept a huge swathe of the workforce who add so much value and so much expertise. I want to talk very briefly, and then I'll shut up, about neurodiversity. It's something I care passionately about, and it's undeniable that different ways of thinking and problem solving are absolutely key to ensuring that organizations thrive. And leading companies have discovered that neurodiversity spurs innovation. It leverages different ways of thinking and processing information. But do you know only 22% of autistic adults in the UK are in employment? Often, this is a cohort with the most incredible skills, and yet some of the biggest obstacles for neurodivergent people is getting through the interview process and then settling in and staying in the workforce. Yesterday, I met with EY to talk about the work that they're doing globally, and it's called the Neurodiverse Centre of Excellence. I just wanted to talk about it with you just for a couple of minutes. Candidates who self-identify as neurodivergent go through a different kind of application process. It's a 4-step recruitment process which finishes with a confidence-building work. It's a simulation called Super Week, which allows them multiple opportunities to shine. And then once recruited, they end up in an extended supportive environment. Now, how does this work in practice? Let me tell you. I've heard about one example of a successful candidate, a young lady, double first maths graduate, brilliant, had spent 5 years stocking the shelves in a supermarket because she couldn't get through the first interview stage of any job that she was applying for. Now, at EY, because of this different recruitment process, she is an AI data scientist. She is adding innumerable value and worth to their business. And this is, don't forget, AI data science, it's like gold. It's really hard to recruit these people. It's even harder to hold on to them, and will be increasingly more so. Through this program, 92% of them have stayed with the business for more than 5 years. It's worth thinking about. There's a massive opportunity to access a hugely untapped pool of talent, and these guys can accelerate emerging technology, solve complex problems, and of course it also ticks the boxes with the S of your environmental, social, and governance, ESG, heightening purpose in business and contributing to social change. Sometimes, everybody, we just have to do things differently, just like the work you're about to hear today in this summit. It's a huge collaborative effort, and I'd love to see it replicated in other sectors. The All-In Census marks such a pivotal moment in improving representation across the advertising landscapes. In a few moments, you will have the powerful data at your fingertips from which we can benchmark progress. But with so much information, it's very easy to be overwhelmed. We can't solve all the problems at once. But we can just tackle a few of the core issues at a time and make a meaningful difference. I'm still stuck with some of the words of the brilliant disability campaigner Samantha Rank, who said back at the 2021 launch event, it doesn't always have to be the big ticket items that make the big difference. Sometimes just a little nod that says, we see you, we value you, we want you in our business. In fact, It's so much better than panicking that you're not doing everything, running around like a headless chicken, and then ending up doing nothing. So, for me, this absolutely speaks to the heart of the UK. We are such a culturally rich nation, which is on an upward trajectory to become even more diverse and fabulous. We need to take action to hold ourselves accountable, to lock in and build on the progress that we're making. And all of you today have the real opportunity to be part of that change and to make a real difference. Enjoy the rest of your summit. Thank you.